honestly, I just don't understand people. It's 9 on a Saturday, and the regular crowd shuffles in. There's an old man sitting next to me making love to his tonic and gin. Sir, you cannot drink that in here. This is not a piano bar. I'm talking to one of my patients that I know very well, who we'll call Greg. From what I know about Greg, he's been living in the city his entire life. I know more about Greg than probably his own family does, especially about his children that never visit him and his landlord who makes him pay his rent before the first of the month when he knows he doesn't get paid until the second. Greg and I go way back, from my very first days working on shifts at the hospital. Everyone knows him, actually. If it's a Saturday, he's coming in with his electric keyboard in hand that he uses to busker outside of the hospital for money. He's what I call a frequent flyer. I mean, he's there every day with a problem. These problems aren't always medical. Sometimes he's hungry, sometimes he's cold, sometimes he just wants to say hi. Imagine that. But those are most of my patients. Regardless of the reason why he's here today, he's typically more physically fit, well-rested, and healthier than I am. I kid you not. Sometimes I'm jealous of Greg's unbreakable spirit and the titanium-like body despite the years of methamphetamine abuse. Then I remember what kind of life he's had outside of these hospital walls, and it's certainly not a pleasant one. His day consists of performing on the street, playing the same songs to a bunch of strangers who could care less about his existence. He makes a few bucks, enough to buy his gin, and then when he's done playing, he comes into our hospital in the dark hours to find shelter and warmth. Sometimes he's greeted with a smile, and sometimes he's greeted with, "Hey, Greg, why are you here again?" Because I've had quite a few patients scream, yell, and spit at me in the last 2 hours, I wasn't disappointed to see Greg next. We made light conversation as we talked about his day and the reason why he came to the ED today. "Nothing special," he says. "I've just had this knee pain for 3 years and I was hoping maybe we could figure it out today." Granted, I have treated Greg for his knee pain dozens of times, along with hundreds of other visits that I simply don't have time to discuss. I examined him and, of course, his knee. I did all the things. We basically used this time to catch up, and I asked him about how his 5 children are doing. They all live across the country, and he often ends the conversation with, "Kids these days never cared to call their parents or even write or visit." I agree with him on many levels there, but as I tidy up his ace bandage and straighten out his jacket lapel, I noticed that he wasn't wearing a shirt. It was unlike Greg to not be fully dressed in shiny buff shoes, a wonderful costume blazer, and a button-up shirt. Today I asked him where his shirt was. He definitely didn't want to get into that conversation. I asked him if he would remove his jacket because I noticed some blood on his collar. He let me take a look and I noticed that he had a large bandage on his chest. "Dude, what happened?" "Well," he said, "I got in a bit more of a scuffle. And, someone tried to steal my piano money. He whipped out a knife and stabbed me." "Oh, just another expected finding today at the hospital," I think to myself. Certainly not normal, but to be honest, it's expected. "Well, Greg, I'm going to have to take a closer look at that wound, man. Let's get you into a room so I can examine you." When I get Greg into a room, I notice that he's still struggling with his lice. This is a daily fear I have when taking care of patients in the ED. Other people in other jobs may fear being fired, having to talk to a coworker they don't like, or even getting out a little bit late. Unfortunately for me, one of my biggest fears is contracting this parasitic infestation and bringing it home to my family. Although this may seem irrational, it's actually a high probability that it will occur. Anyway, I take off the bandage and look at his wound. It looks terrible. "Good God, Greg, why didn't you tell me this was your problem right away?" He responded by saying that was the least of his problems. I laughed and said, I understood. Greg ended up getting 13 stitches that night and a CT of his chest. Luckily, He had no intrathoracic damage, and I was quite pleased to know that. He was also pleased that he now has a very valid excuse to see us again tomorrow.